The Prince William-Manassas Regional Jail Board meeting for September 16th to order. Deputy, call the roll, please.
Austin.
Here.
Bailey is absent. Schleimer. Here. Guzman is absent. Hill.
Here.
King.
Here.
Costelletti.
Here.
Jackson. Here. Phelps.
Here.
Smith is not here. Torres.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Public comments. Debbie, did we receive any?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes of the agenda for September 17th, 2020?
So moved.
All right. Any questions?
You have a second?
Oh, yes, excuse me, second.
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, thank you. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on July the 22nd, 2020?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right. Any second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
There she is. Switch it.
Thank you, Sharon.
Deputy, could you let the record reflect that Tracy Nennis is here?
Okay.
She's present?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Superintendent?
Sure. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming. We can go over to page 26. All the paperwork in the front of the report is a reflection of what happened at the last meeting. We'll go to the inmate population numbers. Look down the second section, and you can see the average daily population of 534 from July 1st for this year, 2020. The next section is, we go back from 1 year from August, and average daily population is 727. Let's see. Transfers to the state system. We did have one. That was a medical hardship that the state did take. However, the state has begun to open up intake to local jails throughout the state. So that's good news. Currently, we have 101 inmates that are out of compliance. Department of Corrections historically has been taking only those inmates with sentences of 3+ years. If we look at our commits for July of 16, I look back to June and it was at 440. So we definitely have an uptick of activity commits over the time period. Releases 608 and process only 61. In August 598 for commits, 574 for releases, and 75 process only. Those process onlys are those who did not get committed to the jail. On page 27, that is the Manassas complex average daily population of an average, you see at the bottom of the page, of 522. And page 28 for August, Manassas complex average daily population 546. So we did go up somewhat there. We're up and around the 560s now, so we've seen the count slowly go up as the courts opened up and things are going there. And on page 29, the historical data, you see all the way back to 1983 of system-wide at 178 and all the way up to 2021 of 534. And like we talked about before, the COVID virus has certainly affected the count here with early releases from the courts and also from the state system too. the next page, the objectives. The first objective is it's a new objective for July. Implement additional strategies to increase recruitment and hiring. Adult Detention Center. We're now utilizing NeoGov, a county human resources initiative, which enhances the hiring process through advertisement and recruitment. They send out our vacancies with the rest of the county vacancies throughout the country. So that's going to pretty much help us there also. Prison Rape and Elimination Act, nothing to report. Career development, some training there. I also like to highlight some specialty training. 21 staff completed opioid revive training and culture diversity. And just a side note, we currently have 88 staff trained in CIT, crisis intervention. So that's very important. Phase 2, the Work Release Center moved into phase 2 section. And on August 3rd, after being housed at the Iron Building since 1989. The phase 2 project has a substantial shortfall money-wise to complete it of just a little bit over $1 million. County staff, financing, county budget, public works, ADC are working together on this issue. So I'll probably have better information and I'll let y'all know. We need to finish the building, obviously. It's right around the corner to being open. I can't give a completion date yet, but it's got to be sometime this fall. Evidence-based decision-making policy team had a meeting on August 20th. A couple of new initiatives that are very important to increase peer navigators for opioid users and mentally ill inmates upon release, while connecting them to services in the community.
Hey, can I go back to phase 2 for a quick second?
Sure.
Have they stopped all construction until you can figure the finances out? Is that what you're
They've got
telling
about
us?
140,000 left in the construction budget. So they're doing, not a whole lot.
Okay.
Just a few comments. COVID-19 overall, since we started testing, 24 staff tested positive. Right today, 2 staff are positive. And over time, 65 inmates tested positive and currently 0 inmates positive. We're slowly bringing back inmate programs. We brought back Skill Source. Those are job finders for work release. OAR, which is reentry services. Men in New Direction in the Mosler building, and inmate recreation and haircuts also. So we're starting to have some activity. We make sure that whoever comes in from the outside is wearing masks. We make sure there's cleaning supplies, and also the inmates wear a mask and also keep distance. So we don't want to bring it into the building. On September 4th, we had a jail basic graduation. Since we did not invite any guests, 45 families were able to watch the graduation, including 1 family in Colombia, South America. So I thought that was kind of unique. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thanks, Superintendent.
I don't have it might have been because the person was here before, took it with them, but I don't have the handout that you all just went through. I'm familiar enough with it, but thank you for that.
Carol, budget update.
Just, excuse me, sir.
Yes. Could you recognize that Ms. Guzman is here?
Sure.
All right, sir. Good evening.
On page 40 of your report, a budget status update on the commissary budget. The balance at the end of August was $2,226,962. The budget status is below, very, very early in the year, so very little reported at this point. But if you have any questions, please let me know. Turning on to page 41. We've mentioned the body scanner before. That was installed, purchased and installed down in the intake area. We also were working with county staff in the purchasing office for our medical and psychiatric contracts. Those used to be separate contracts, and we decided to combine them. It was usually very difficult for us to get responses to just psychiatry contracts. So there are a lot of the medical vendors do provide both. So we included those together. We selected the vendor. That information just came through. The old contract was extended through October 31st. This contract represents the same amount of service hours. We originally looked for increased hours, but due to the lower count, we're going to keep the hours the same, and we can reassess as we do renewals. That contract is about 24,000 increase in medical and about another 24,000 in psychiatric services. We checked those prices and we are in line with what other jails are paying for these services. So we would ask that once the Ms. Pandak's able to do her legal review, that you approve for the sheriff to sign professional services contract.
So, Mr. Chairman, the board can act tonight and authorize you to sign once we complete our review, which should be a day or so.
I'll do that when Carol finishes.
Yes, sir.
We'll do that.
Just wanted to clarify. Yes, sir.
And moving on to page 42. Our expenditure budget. The only thing I'll note, again, very early in the year, we have a much larger budgeted savings in our salary lapse. So that represents $2.8 million. So that will restrict our funding this year. And if you move on to page 43 and the revenues, one of the things is with our we have a number of lines that are going to be negative this year, and it's going to be a bit of a challenge. Our federal revenue, for example, since the 287G program is no longer with us, we have through July and August received $84.63. Our budget is for $92,500, so that will be a significant shortfall for us. The lower count, a lot of the inmate revenues will be lower and expected to be at a deficit. The state will also be expected to be at a deficit. And some of the other rules changing with our SCAP grant funding may cause, there are some state changes, some local changes, some federal changes. That's probably going to affect that as well. We're trying to do some analysis to figure that out. It's a little tough to figure out right now. So right now, Manassas is actually at 11%, which is the lowest we've had in quite some time. And that's what we budget for Manassas. So they're trending well for their numbers, but we expect a significant revenue deficit this year. And that's all I have unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Carol? I need a motion to allow me to sign the medical contract. Once that contract is complete, of course, Carol is working with Ms. Pandak and purchasing and accounting to finalize that contract. Can I get a motion for me to approve it at the end to approve that contract?
So moved.
Motion by Secretary.
Either way.
All right. Take a second.
Do you use him as a first? I'll second.
All right. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. During our last meeting, I asked staff to put together a presentation on programs. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do that is because of COVID, a lot of new members have not been able to tour the facility and see our programs and talk to staff and talk to inmates involved in the programs. But the programs that the presentation that you're about to see, I think Major Osborne is going to do it. These programs represent who we are. When I say who we are, that means that a lot of jails in Virginia and around the country do not have the programs for their inmates like we have. So one of the things I'm proud of is the program that's available for the inmates at the adult detention center. So Major Osborne?
Thank you, Sheriff. Try and lower the lights down so we can have a better viewing experience. Okay, good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Major Rnr Osborne, Director of Inmate Services for the Adult Detention Center. As the Sheriff had said, tonight I'm giving you a presentation on the programs we offer here at the Adult Detention Center. Virtually every aspect of the inmate management falls under my command once they've been processed in, and programs are a big part of that. At the end of the presentation, I'll be handing out booklets with the information I have in this PowerPoint this evening, as well as literature and pamphlets. So, and my business card. So if you think of anything after this meeting that you couldn't think to ask during the PowerPoint, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Nelson Mandela once said, "No one knows a nation until one has been inside its jails. A nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest ones." We are proud of this agency and the culture we've developed here over the years, and we continue to strive towards change and a progressive approach to management of the inmates entrusted to our care. Treating them with dignity and respect is what each officer is instructed to do when they get hired here. It's part of our mission statement. You might think it counterintuitive for people who make a livelihood over the incarceration of inmates to encourage them to do programming and work on themselves so that they may not recidivate. But that's exactly what we try to do here. At the heart of the management of the inmates is our programming. Even though COVID has curtailed the programming, as the Colonel had said, we are started to run some of the programs, such as the faith-based units and the OAR and Skill Source, which you'll learn more about here shortly. For a lot of the inmates here, it's the first time they accomplish anything really meaningful, or anything at all, for that matter. I've asked my staff and some of our partners to speak to the programs that they oversee and to give you a better idea of who they are and what programs and how they interface with us here at the ADC. Tonight, MJ McDonald, who is our ADC program coordinator, is going to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm MJ McDonald, the programs coordinator here at the Adult Detention Center. Volunteers and programs play an important role. Education classes through Prince William County Schools for our juvenile and special education inmates are held. These classes help the inmates obtain their high school diploma and GED. Graduation ceremonies, including cap and gown, are held a few times a year to help celebrate this important achievement. 2 times a year, we host a community resource fair. We ask partners within the community and resources to come into the jail and speak with the inmates directly. This is a great opportunity for the inmates to talk directly with these partners. We have other supportive programs here at the jail. Empower Communities Opioid Project through George Mason University helps target inmates with an opioid addiction. We're able, through the classification and intake process, to identify these inmates and connect them with a peer specialist. DMV Connect, through the Department of Motor Vehicles, comes into our jail every other month to assist inmates in gaining their walker's ID or driver's license. Child support services, Charlie education classes, and HIV testing are also offered here at the ADC. We have veteran-only classes for inmates that have military service. We're also able to bring in veteran services from the community to speak to these inmates to help them gain information. Programs are vital to help the inmates become productive citizens upon release.
I always like to incorporate photographs of our inmates at the completion of some of the programs, and this is a photograph of the GED graduation we had last year for these gentlemen. And you can see the diversity in the class and the pride in their face as they pose for their graduation photograph. We actually host graduation ceremonies as you would for any school. There's a cap and gown, as you can see. Family members are allowed to attend. We have guest speakers. The inmates are allowed to stand and speak to their experience with the GED program. And I have to say, and I generally speak at these graduations as well, it amazes me that in spite of the conditions and the distractions and the stresses of being incarcerated, they persevere and manage to get their GED. And statistically, a lot of high school students can't pass that test on the first time themselves. You can see some of the other things we have here with 471 volunteers. We are very grateful for the volunteer help we have here. If not for the volunteers, we wouldn't be nearly as successful as we are. Serve Safe certifications right here. Serve Safe is a program for our kitchen trustees where they can get certified in the restaurant industry in the standards of running a restaurant in cleanliness conditions. And it makes them a much more marketable candidate for hiring in the restaurant industry when they graduate. And you'll see some photographs alluding to that a little bit later. The Colonel talked about the opioid project with George Mason. 51 inmates have been connected. DMV, we have DMV show up here. They get people that walker IDs, help them get their license back. Some people even get their CDL license while they're going through the programs. We have classes for HIV and AIDS people suffering from that. All of our veteran programs are run by veterans themselves. And that is, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from those who attend those programs because they're being held by people who have been through what some of our inmates have been through. And you can see that we have the Prince William County school system is very involved in here as well with special education, juvenile education, and English as second language classes. And you'll see some of the inmates who've been through those classes as well. Chances are, if you live in the county and you've had your car serviced or had some lawn work done or ate at a restaurant, you may have encountered one of our work release inmates. We have a work release program, as you've heard in our reports, that have just been moved on site from Euclid Avenue. These are inmates who can get a job, work in the community, either with the job they had prior to incarceration or with job placement through the help of SkillSource and our staff. A lot of the inmates go on to stay with those employers upon release, and we get a lot of positive feedback from them saying that even make management. Inmates in the work release program donate their time every year at the Good News banquets for serving food and taking down and putting up the tables. They also have a stretch of the Parkway and Liberia Avenue where they've adopted those roads and do a lot of litter cleanup for the communities there as well. We also have had females donate their time at the Prince William County Animal Shelter over the years. Obviously, we haven't done anything like this year, but in years past, we host annual cookouts for the work police and workforce inmates, and their families can attend. And the look on the families' faces, and in a lot of cases, they haven't seen them in person for a couple of years, is it can tug at your heart. This is obviously one of our most sought after programs from inmates, but each inmate, obviously inmates cannot all qualify for this because of the rigorous background checks, reference checks, ties to the community, no history of violent or sexual crimes. This is Lieutenant Creighton Bay, who manages the Work Release Center. He's going to give you a few words.
Hi, my name is Lieutenant Creighton Bay. I'm the manager of the Work Release Program here at the Prince William-Manassas Adult Detention Center. Here on this program, we house male and female. We can house 60 male and 15 female. While on this program, each inmate that comes onto this program is interviewed and their background is checked and they all are reviewed and they all have qualified for this program and they all meet the standards for the Department of Corrections work release standards. All inmates are nonviolent, felony, as well as misdemeanors. This program gives the inmate an opportunity to make money, to pay their court fines or any fines assessed against them during their incarceration or any fines that they had before they were arrested. We have different programs for the inmates here. We have substance abuse, religious services, anger management. These are programs that inmates have that they can better themselves and work on themselves while they're here, as well as earning money they can work on themselves so that they can become better parents, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, women and men. And they can also work on themselves so they don't be repeat offenders. This program gets a lot of good reviews from people that have successfully completed it. They call back and they let us know that how well that this program was as an asset to them as well as their family.
One of the things I did not mention is the work release inmates are also the ones that clean this complex in the non-secure areas, including this room and this floor. The workforce, I'm sure you've seen them around town with their blue shirts and orange caps. They mow the grass on the judicial complex. They do tree removal during hurricanes. They pick up trash. They do a lot of work for the county, painting buildings and debris removal. You can see we have 60 males and 15 females who typically occupy these units. Obviously, the count is pretty low right now during COVID. There's the amount of bags that they've cleaned up from the county roads. And they also provide services to Ebenezer Baptist Church and Manassas Senior Citizen Center. Here are some of the photos. You can see the graduation. Sometimes the locations change, but there it is in the main jail gymnasium, which is where we also host the reentry fairs, the resource fairs, part of the reentry program, where we have many vendors, both public and private, come in. Anywhere between 40 and 50 of them come in and set up and very eager to hand out literature and speak to inmates where they can kind of go from station to station and shop for the things that they need prior to release. There's around 170 to 200 inmates attend these programs biannually. And typically they're about 90 days out from release, so they can get plugged into the services they need. I mentioned the Serve Safe certifications. There, the females, you can see how happy they are. And the men they're very proud. And like I said, it makes them more marketable in the job market when they get released. Well, I already referenced the number of volunteers that we have in the community, and they're a great asset, but we also have partners and vendors to bring in a specialized skill set to the inmates. And one of them is Skill Source. And Miss Wayne works with Skill Source, which closely works hand in hand with our work release center to help find them jobs, helps them get on the internet to develop resumes, helps them, they give them classes on how to dress for success. They complement our work release staff very well, and she's going to give you an introduction to herself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wayne, and I'm an employment specialist with Fairfax County Department of Family Services. I manage a program called WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. This program provides employment and training services for work release and post-release inmates. When I'm at the Work Release Center, I'm providing one-on-one employment services to the inmates. I also offer career assessment that includes interest and aptitude assessment. Inmates also have the opportunity for training and industry standard certifications such as HVAC, CDL, medical, and IT. We network with area employers to help facilitate job placements and referrals. we have a list of approximately 150 local employers that we help match the inmates to the employer. Inmates in the work release program average hourly wages of $13.50. We work in partnership with the Virginia Career Works Northern Centers, a network of 6 centers in Northern Virginia, where job seekers can access comprehensive employment and training services such as WIOA at no cost. So everything I just listed, resume writing, career coaching, mock interviews, the general public has access to also. The centers offer linkages to social service agencies as well as other community services. The center staff is also very knowledgeable. So a client can go in and ask for help with resume review, and the center staff might realize, hey, you haven't worked in 6 months. You might need to sign up for SNAP and TANF, and then the center staff can help them sign up for those services. It's that kind of customer service, employment knowledge, and resources that I'm excited to bring to the work release program. You can find me at the Work Release Center, or you can call me at 703-536-4989.
So they actually have office space here on the complex and work closely with our staff to help the work release inmates. Some of the statistics with Skill Source there. Talks about access to internet and computers and printers, linkages to social services, veteran and disabled persons, case managers, serves work release offenders with career assessment. I used to manage the work release center 15 or so years ago, and I got to tell you, we've come a long way with second chance employers. One of our duties as the managers over there was to hit the community, hit the pavement, and go from business to business and more or less solicit the inmate workforce on work release. And a lot of people weren't willing to give them a second chance. Those who did take that chance on our work release inmates found that they were a very hardy workforce, that they never called in sick, they were drug tested frequently, and they worked hard because they wanted to be able to maintain their position on the program. And that afforded them an opportunity to send money home to their families and pay off this court fine. So then when they leave, they're not leaving in the hole. Mrs. Hunt is with OAR. She is a vendor that brings in many services to our inmates here for programming. And she's going to go over some of the classes that they offer to the inmate population.
Good morning. I represent OAR NOVA. OAR stands for Opportunities, Alternatives, and Resources. We are a reentry services organization. Here in Prince William, we work with clients pre-release and post-release. We provide nearly 20 classes per week to the inmate population across all segments: women, men, work release. And within work release, what's unique about Prince William Adult Detention Center is that there are co-ed programming. Across the programming spectrum, we do many things. Financial literacy through the FDIC, life skills, impact of crime, the fatherhood series of courses, parenting for women, a series of courses, as well as a multitude of other classes. We are recently starting change programs. These are addressing the criminogenic needs as well as the immediate needs of the inmates. The popular courses, most popular, are fatherhood, impact of crime, and the financial literacy courses. They look strongly towards home buying, believe it or not. And some inmates actually mail their literature home to their family members and go over the literature over the phone during the week because they find it that empowering. The other services that we provide are one-to-one counseling. We also provide reentry services and case management. They can start pre-release case management up to 4 months prior to release. That's where we connect them to community resources, housing, employment, financial assistance, and make their transition able to be more stable. Thanks to Captain Taylor and his team, we have grown strongly in the time that we've been here since 2018, and we are making great inroads into the Prince William community that assists the inmates in their transition home. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope to see you soon.
I want to clarify one thing she said earlier in the clip about the co-ed work release inmates. We obviously don't have a co-ed unit for the men and women. They are on the program and they are housed separately. Just ease your mind at that. Some of the things I want to point out here that is things that you don't think about, such as direct financial assistance for housing and work and clothes and food. People who get arrested in July and released in January often leave in t-shirts, flip-flops, and shorts. OAR will outfit people with winter clothes whose family members may have abandoned them or not thought enough to do that for them. They also secure tickets for Greyhound or Amtrak to help them find their way home if they're not from this immediate area. And these are some of the classes they offer here. She mentioned in her video address there, but OER is a good partner to have, and we're glad to have them on board, and they seem to appreciate working with us. Next, we wanted to get just a couple of testimonials of inmates who are actually in the program right now. Like I said earlier, the programs had been curtailed for a while, but we're slowly getting them back up and running, and these gentlemen are currently here and wanted to say something about their participation.
Hi, my name is Andy. I've been here at the Adult Detention Center for right at 3 years here now, and we do offer some OER classes here at this facility, and they're very good classes. I've taken just about all of the classes. They do have some new classes that are coming out now that I want to participate. The staff and all that's doing these here classes, they are very skilled with what they're doing, and it's a very good thing for learning and teaching us at this facility. It has helped me to communicate more with my family throughout this year time, and that's something that I really, really need. And I need that not just now, but even when I get out of this here place, to communicate.
I've been here like for 3 years. I'm taking a couple programs and I speak perfect English, so like I learn more English when I do my English classes. I told my family like I feel good because that program is hope to in your life, in my life, to think to do something crazy, or it showed me respect to people. Uh, it's good programs. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. Uh, Trying to change my life.
Most of you are probably aware of the drug dorm program that we have here. I know a lot of courts love to direct people to them in the hopes that they will address their addictions and for reconsideration. The dorm program is run by dedicated CS staff who specialize in recovery, working with inmates with dual diagnoses, often mental health and drug addiction issues. They work hand in hand with our staff here and have been here for many years. We have a very good working relationship with the dorm staff, and the program lasts approximately 4 months. Used to be a little longer, but they had the waiting list to get in this program sometimes is well over 100. It's a very popular program and very successful, highly regarded in the substance abuse recovery world. But Mrs. Westerman's going to give you a brief overview.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Westerman, and I'm a therapist with the Drug Dorm Program at the Prince William County Adult Detention Center. The Drug Dorm Program is a treatment program for men and women who are incarcerated, who have substance use, mental health, trauma, and criminal thinking, criminal behavior problems. It's about 4 months long. We have 33 beds for men and 10 beds for women, along with a pre and post dorm program called Recovery Dorm. It also houses 33 men. We use evidence-based practices to help treat these clients. All of these practices have been proven to reduce recidivism. So we work with these clients from beginning to end. We do a comprehensive assessment with them, identifying their needs and then kind of tailoring the treatment to meet those needs. We use both group and individual therapy. We do group treatment every day and individual therapy weekly, kind of bi-weekly as needed. So they do the program, which again is 4 months long. And then prior to their completion, they create a relapse prevention plan, which kind of outlines what their aftercare plan is. We work with them not only in the program, but after they've completed their program and once they've been released to make sure that they get connected with aftercare programs and get connected with community resources. And we really work hard with them to make sure that they can stay stable, balanced, sober, both for themselves and for their families.
And some bullets for the drug dorm. They have been here since 1991. I remember when they got here. And in the early days, programming wasn't as emphasized as it is now. And it's part of the evolution of corrections that I'm glad to be a part of. But the drug dorm was one of the first big steps we took in that direction. And then the female dorm, you can see, came along in 1995. And it's grown exponentially. The program has, the staff and the interest in this program has grown over the years. You can see the graph here on the statistics of those who can get treatment and those don't in the Department of Corrections. You can see some of the outcomes. It increases public safety, improves outcomes, and reduces recidivism. Okay. We're pretty proud of our mental health staff here, and that's an area of programming a lot of people overlook or don't think about. But mental health is a growing problem in corrections today, and we have mental health therapists who do great job with the challenges with serious mental health issues ranging from just anxiety to multiple diagnoses of serious illnesses that often result in hospitalization. This is Mrs. Archer. She's our mental health supervisor. And after her will be Tammy. She's also one of our mental health therapists who runs the Magellan Mental Health Pilot Program for the females.
My name is Catherine Archer. I'm the mental health supervisor for the Prince William-Manassas Regional Adult Detention Center. The foundation for the mental health program is all based on continuity of care. We have inmates who come in who have mental health treatment in the community, and we partner with stakeholders, including probation and parole, state probation and parole, and the Prince William County Community Services. As well as for many inmates, this is the first intervention they will have in the mental health system. Last year alone, we had 100 new assessments where we got people medication and treatment. In that vein, we also partner with these same stakeholders to provide continuity of care when they leave. We ensure they have bridge medications. We ensure they have discharge appointments so they can have mental health treatment in the community. Some of the ways we provide mental health are both through individual one-on-one and group modalities. That includes cognitive behavioral, grief and bereavement, trauma-focused, and co-occurring. The main focus for us at the Prince William County Manassas Regional Adult Detention Center is to ensure we have continuity of care for mental health treatment so people get the treatment that they need.
Hello, my name is Tammy Carter. I am the jail therapist that works within the Jail Mental Health Pilot Program. The program here within the jail is called RISE and STAR. It has two components. RISE is recovery in a supportive environment. That's the jail-based services that we offer. As a part of that program, we have trauma-focused yoga, art therapy. We have multiple groups and collaborations with organizations outside of the jail. Friends of the Guest House comes in and does a lot of wonderful groups here. I run groups and do individual therapy as well for the ladies. We have a lot of really great trauma-focused modalities because most of them come in with some sort of trauma history. We also offer a re-entry component called STAR. STAR stands for Supportive Transition After Release. As a part of the STAR program, the female inmates are linked with community-based services. They're linked with different treatment programs. We have funding through the grant to send them to treatment, and a lot of them otherwise would not be able to get treatment for their addiction or their co-occurring disorders. We also are able to send them out with discharge medications as well. It's been a really great program. We've been able to operate this now for about 3 years. We're going into our 4th year, and I think it's really benefited women that we serve.
If you didn't catch it, Ms. Carter alluded to yoga and art therapy. That took some old security-minded jailers a little time to process when that was first proposed, but we are doing it, and it is with the females only at this point, but it's gotten a lot of good reviews from the female population who's involved in that. Some of the bullets we have here, you see over 400 hours of psychiatric services are provided so far this year. let's see. These are all the certifications of our mental health crew. Our mental health team grew with the expansion of phase 2, and we're proud to say that we have a state-of-the-art forensic unit in phase 2 that will open with medical staff, mental health staff, and security staff working in harmony to treat these more severely mentally ill inmates that we get. This is some of the pilot program that Tammy was talking about. As you can see, they work with transitional housing for some of the females that get released, up to 15 to date. They've helped with transitional housing. They also get released with a 2-week supply of bridge medications to help them until they connect with their own services. A partnership with Prince William County Community Services for continuity of care, and the coordinate the referral with Steve's office for services as appropriate. Our chaplain, Raymond Perez, if you've not met him, he is a fine man who is our chaplain for our inmate population, but I have to say he goes above and beyond giving services to just the inmates. He administers to the staff. He ministers to inmates' families. He's one of the first people we call when we have a crisis here, because he's just a wise man and all. And he's going to give you a little presentation about his faith-based programming.
Good afternoon. This is Chaplain Ray Perez. I work for Good News Jail and Prison Ministry, and we are partners with the Adult Detention Center here. We manage the religious services. We deal with all the communities that are religious communities. We deal with the Jehovah's Witness, the Jewish community, the Muslim community, the Mormon community, Catholics, Christians. We coordinate all of the ministry, teaching, Bible studies, worship services inside the facility. And my main function for the Adult Detention Center is to be a liaison in the community so that we're able to provide the proper services for the inmates in the institution. I also oversee the Mind Dorm and the Wind Dorm programs. Those are principle-based programs where we teach inmates based on known and understood principles, how to deal with their finances, how to deal with reintegration back into their communities, dealing with family issues, dealing with religious commitment and values, re-establishing some of their fundamental core moral principles. Those programs are very effective. We've had great success with many of our former clients. We still maintain a relationship with a number of those clients, and we've seen some really good outcomes. The other thing that we do in the facility is that we work as a resource, providing consultation with the religious diets for the staff. We also are here for the staff. We are a pastoral influence throughout the facility to encourage the entire facility. So we're delighted that we're a part of this team. Really thankful for this particular agency and its commitment to professional ways of dealing with the religious needs of the inmates. So we're very thankful to be a part of this team.
Unfortunately, we have not started up our religious services as of yet. That's one of the more tricky things under COVID that we're trying to navigate through, because that's a room where you're going to have a difficult time social distancing, and so that's sad to say we haven't gotten that going yet. But the Mind and Wind Dorm are back up and running, and that stands for Men in New Direction and Women in New Direction. And those programs have been around for almost 20 years as well. You can see all the bullets regarding the chaplain's role here. He also is very active in the community with post-release for inmates. He will also step in. The interesting thing about the programs here, whether you're OAR, skill sourced, chaplain, or even the staff here, they they work cooperatively to address things like the bus tokens I'd mentioned earlier. The chaplain will fill in for OAR if they're not available, or he'll actually drive them to where they need to go. And he provides pastoral care to the volunteers as well. Sergeant Baker is our classification and treatment supervisor and oversees the program. She's going to give you a few words about her role in this COG.
Hi, my name is Sergeant Baker. I supervise inmate programs and reentry services at the ADC. During the classification assessment, we conduct a proxy tool, which is used to predict an inmate's risk of recidivating. In reentry, we focus our services on inmates who are at medium to high risk of reoffending. Another assessment tool we use is the Rnr Assessment, which stands for Risk Need Responsivity. This tool is a decision assistance tool, which helps in building a case plan as well as focusing classes on criminogenic needs. A few years ago, the ADC established a re-entry dorm program. Inmates who are 90 to 120 days pre-release are able to go into the program and obtain vital documents such as their birth certificate, federal bonding letters, as well as IDs. They're also able to take programs which focus on criminal thinking, self-improvement, as well as becoming a productive citizen. Inmates who graduate the reentry dorm obtain a reentry packet which has information regarding community resources, copies of the resume, as well as certifications to include ServSafe and VDOT Flagger certification. The reentry team conducts post-release follow-up with the ex-offender for 90 days post-release. It is a mini check-in to make sure that the ex-offender is doing well in the community. The ADC is very active in the community. We are involved with family orientation with District 35 Probation and Parole, as well as active members on the Reentry Council. A few years ago, the ADC partnered with George Mason University's internship program. Each semester, we have 3 to 5 interns who come into the ADC and provide reentry case management for offenders prior to their release. They are able to complete applications as well as give them referrals to community partners. Because we are a regional jail, we do have offenders who are not able to fully complete programs because they may be released into the community abruptly, whether on bond, time served, or being found not guilty of their charges. In this case, we still want to provide them with reentry services. We place resource flyers in our booking and release department, which has information regarding community services as well as transitional assistance in the community. Our reentry services have been made possible with our volunteers and community partners. We look forward to maintaining those partnerships and expanding reentry at the ADC. Thank you.
Like Sergeant Baker said, for those inmates who get out spontaneously, there is literature, and it's in the booklets that I'll be giving to you at the end of this presentation for them to plug into services when they get out. The Reentry Council that the county formed years ago, I think under Governor McDonald, 3 of our staff are active on that council as well. These are some of the things that we got 201 inmates have completed the reentry program since 2016. They have a mentorship program in there as well. Resource flyers is booking. We have a Medicaid worker who helps the inmates get connected to Medicaid and Medicare who qualify for it as well. Okay. A few years ago, the reentry team partnered with George Mason University, who Sergeant Baker also mentioned in her statements, and they have been a valuable resource for interns here. We've hired a number of the interns who have gone through the internship, gotten their degree, and then enjoyed their experience so much that they come back to apply. In fact, yesterday the colonel promoted one of them to master jail officer who started here in the internship about 4 years ago. This inmate is a former reentry inmate that is on a video that the reentry team partnered with George Mason to make to share with other agencies and with the public who had questions or wanted to know more about the reentry program. This is just a little video snippet of what he had to say in that video.
People coming out from jail, aren't always bad, and we're not forever criminals, you know what I'm saying? People do change. I was able to get a job as soon as I came home from jail, I was able to have different job resources if needed. I was able to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't for this program. I feel like every jail needs to have a program like this, and I guarantee the success rate of inmates would be different if there was more reentry programs.
We've had a number of agencies come on site over the last few years to visit our reentry program and our resource fairs because they've heard the success that we're having here, and they've implemented some of those programs in their agencies after leaving. And Lieutenant West has been a remarkable help in passing on that knowledge to them as well. Here are some reentry benefits. Let's see. They're part of the National Night Out. We talked about that. Family orientation with probation and parole, reentry council meetings, opioid summit for Prince William County. That picture you see there are donations of Christmas gifts for incarcerated inmates who want to give to their children during the holidays but can't. And to see the look on the family member's face when they show up to pick up these bags of gifts that are waiting them for them in the lobby is priceless. I can't say enough about that. Case management interviews, 30 to 45 days pre-release. 7,294 reentry services referrals have been provided by 2,949 inmates over the last 6 years. I think that's pretty incredible. These are 3 videos that we're not going to play because of their length, but I wanted to give a brief introduction to them so that when you get your booklets, you can get onto Prince William-Manassas ADC on YouTube if you care to, and you can watch all 3 videos. The one on the left is one entitled Decisions You Make. For about 15 years, every Memorial Day weekend, I would visit Henderson Hall or Quantico with a couple of inmates who are participating in the drug program to speak to the Marines going into Memorial Day weekend, because the troops tend to get into a little bit of trouble over the weekend. So the commanders there thought it would be a good idea to have our inmates speak to them about decisions and choices you make and the consequences that you pay for them. And it is one of the most talked about events because we're not the only attendee to these things, but it is by far, on the feedback I've received, the most talked about event that they have. So we couldn't do it this year. So with the help of Alan, we did a virtual presentation for Henderson Hall and Quantico and made a YouTube video, and it was shown at both of those bases this past Memorial Day and received a lot of positive response. The middle one is the road to reentry that I referenced earlier, and the video clip was taken from regarding our reentry program. And the last clip is Chaplain Perez again, who did a video for YouTube a few years ago as a PSA for their role in the ADC here. So I hope, I've got one more slide here. These are some of the partners, not all. These are most, but not all, the public and private vendors that participate in our resource fair. They are always excited to be here. They always are taken aback by the interest and the enthusiasm that the inmates show when they visit their tables. They stay the entire day. They come in early and set up like a job fair. They break for lunch. We feed them up here, and then they resume after lunch and they stay until 4 o'clock. We like to thank them. We can't thank them enough, and they understand just how grateful we are. So in closing, I I hope you understand that managing of inmates isn't just incarceration. We try to give them programs that help them stay busy, stay positive. It makes them more manageable for us. It makes them more likely to come back upon release. And I can honestly say through our efforts here, we've redirected lives and in some cases have saved them. And that has come from their mouth, not mine. So that is my presentation. Unless you have any questions, I'll be walking around and handing you each your own PowerPoint booklet with the pamphlets in them. Yes, sir.
as I examine that list of partners there, it looks like they're all either not-for-profit government agencies, state-based organizations, right?
There are private and public entities
Okay.
that all show up. Some lady comes all the way from Richmond to teach them on how to be entrepreneurs. And she shared a story with me last year where one of our inmates got out, started his own company, and has been wildly successful. He's a second chance employer. And that happens quite often. When the inmates to get out, they find success, they oftentimes return the favor.
Thank you.
Sheriff, just a statement, Colonel, Major, all your staff, great presentation. I think it shows a lot of the new members, exactly what you said. We're not just incarcerating people, we're trying to make them more productive citizens so they can get out and be successful. And, you know, as the jail is surrounded by the city of Manassas, one of the questions I frequently get is how safe is it? And, you know, 30 plus years of myself working here, your work release program, extremely safe, good for the community, good for the inmates. And that's what the message I try to tell our community. This is one of the safest jails that you will ever experience, and there should be no concern to living nearby. Great job by all of you.
I can say, somebody mentioned the other day about the term punishment in incarceration, and I was quick to let them know that it's not our job to punish anybody. We just take care of them while they're here. We keep them safely secure while they're adjudicated, and either they go to the DOC or they go back to a neighborhood near you. So it just makes sense to get them better prepared for that. And like I said at the beginning, it seems counterintuitive for us to try and make them not come back because our livelihood depends on it, but that is exactly what we're doing.
The one thing, I'm sorry.
Do non-English speakers have access to all these wonderful programs that you run here?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do non-English speakers
Yes, sir.
Have access to all these wonderful programs that you actually run here?
They do, sir. They would have to go through the ESOL class first to help become proficient in English speaking. We don't have the resources or the space to run dual programs in Spanish and in English. They do get a lot of Spanish literature. They do get Spanish Bible studies. And they do participate in this. And one of the gentlemen who spoke earlier, he's becoming proficient in English, and he's starting to take those programs that are available to him. But no, to answer your question, we don't run both of these programs in Spanish and in English. But regardless of your language, you're more than welcome to attend them. Any more questions?
Just one question or a comment and a question. The comment is I really appreciate seeing the presentation and see the evolution of the programs, because a lot of things have been developed in the last, some have been here a long time, but a lot have been developed in the last 5 or 6 years, such as the reentry, the use of the risk assessments. A lot of this is part and parcel to the work that's been done through evidence-based decision-making, which represents a lot of the system work that's been done. That ADC has been a fantastic partner with. So I just appreciate that they were able to highlight all of that, and it was great information. My question was about the drug dorm.
Yes, sir.
I know how popular that is. That is currently not operational because of the situation.
Not by our choice, but community services have curtailed those programs at this time. We're in the talks of trying to get them, see where they're at and coming back. But at this time, the drug dorm is not operational.
I realize logistically that's difficult, but just with the opioid situation, we know that that's a great program, and the sooner that can get back online virtually or however, the better. We're doing a lot of our treatment groups in my agency virtual. I know CS is, but I know there's tons of logistical concerns to doing something like that in a facility like this. But I just wanted to make that comment because that is such an important program, and the courts really depend on it, as you know. But thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'd like to follow up on what Mr. Torres said. Do you know what your population of Hispanic, like native Spanish speakers is at this
I don't have that offhand. I can get that to you.
Yeah, it's not so important. I was really just leading into, if you get people from the community asking the ADC to partner with them to serve your Spanish-speaking population with some of the sort of services, I'm assuming the jail would be all over talking to people about that.
We would be open to that, but I can tell you from my personal knowledge, most of our Spanish inmates or first language Spanish speaking inmates speak English or enough to engage and become part of the programming here. It's rare that we have a Spanish speaking inmate that doesn't speak English at all. But it's certainly something we can retain.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you don't have a large population that only speaks Spanish, it would be less relevant anyway. That's why I asked you this question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, as we talk about the programs, of course, I'm certainly proud of the ADC staff here who have put these programs together. Sheriff Hill started these programs way back, and they continue to grow today. So a great staff here that's committed to this, and they do a great job. Programs also keep inmates from doing the bad things while they're here too. They're busy, and they tend not to misbehave when they're attending these programs, because if they do, they won't be in the programs very long. So and Rod had said it, when you're locked up, you have a lot of things going on. You got court, you got noise, you've got family issues, and for the inmates to concentrate, get their GED, you know, that's a terrific thing. But as we always said, safety and security of our facilities for our staff and the community and the visitors coming here is #1 priority. Everything else falls below it, because we couldn't have one day of programming if we didn't have that safety and security here for the community. So that's key. Good job, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just make one comment about the programs. Is one thing that I'm quite sure Superintendent agrees with me, is that meaningful programs contribute to the orderly running of the institution. And I know we got over 400 volunteers that come in, and I can't remember an incident where a volunteer was injured or hurt while they were here. And we've been open now for what, 38 years, and no one's been hurt, because inmates take a real interest in the program. So they appreciate it also.
And Sheriff, I think the value of the volunteers, the 400, is they go back into the community and they talk about the ADC and what we do here also.
You know, and every year, Reverend Chaplain Perez has a jail ministry program every year, and I attend that program. And the inmates, not only the Spanish-speaking inmates, the other inmates, and they put on a great program there. And that program really is geared toward the inmates, want to show the ADC how much they appreciate what they receive, and they get a chance to thank the volunteers at the same time. So next year, when they have their program, I'd like to see a lot of you all come out. And the inmates serve dinner while we were there, so it's a great program to see what's going on at ADC. You know, when you have programs like this, and you talk about transparency, with all the volunteers coming in and they see what's going on at the ADC, that they get the word back in the community about who we are and what we're doing here. Okay.
And when we do go on a tour, this will help you. You've seen it up on the screen, and you'll be able to see how it all connects together. So I look forward to that.
All right. Any other questions about programs? Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Next we have on the agenda is ICE detainees. I know at our last meeting, a lot of questions came up about detainers and what we're doing and what can we do. And everyone submitted questions. And I'm pretty sure staff got those questions back to everyone that asked questions. Superintendent, you want to talk about the questions that were asked and how we responded to them?
Yeah, everyone did get your answers back, I hope, and they were able to review them. One question that was asked, it was asked by two members here of what are other jails doing. And Major Lambert and myself have made contact with quite a few jails around the state of Virginia. And we actually contacted 5 sheriff-run jails and 9 regional jails as to what they're doing with detainers and how ICE gets to pick up the inmates, what procedures they use. It was pretty interesting, the information we got back. Let's see. 13 out of 14 of the agencies that we looked at accepted the ICE detainers. And we're talking about in the state of Virginia. 4 required ICE to be at the jail when at release time. And we're included in those 4. If not, inmate is to be released back in the community. That's the policy we've been following here since the 287G program went away. 7 jails in Virginia coordinate the release time with ICE. 1 jail allows ICE to respond within 1 hour. 4 jails allow 2 hours, and 2 allow 4 hours. 1 jail says, well, anytime ICE comes, and so forth. 1 jail holds ICE on a U.S. Marshal contract, so they just keep him there. And 1 jail out of the 14 does not accept detainers, so they don't deal with ICE at all. Our procedure when the 287G program ended is to release the inmate with an ICE detainer if ICE staff are not here at times of the release. Unfortunately, this procedure has resulted in releasing several individuals back to the community who are a potential threat to the public safety. Serious charges. Serious charges to the public. The police chiefs were notified, and I didn't get any comfort out of that. They were notified of subjects released back into their jurisdictions to include charge and address. Both chiefs here were notified in Manassas Park. As a result, ICE officials are in the community looking for these individuals. Their presence is known. If they're with other people who are undocumented, ICE most likely will take them into custody also. Instead of just 1, they may be taking more. And an ICE official, I didn't ask what they were doing, but ICE officials did tell me they're going after these individuals because they're that big of a threat to the community. And I take no fun in explaining this. I started here 38 years ago. And our oath was to protect the community. And the way we're doing things right now is not protecting the community. We better come up with a plan. It's our responsibility. It's mine and it's ours in this room. People who work in our intake section, young people, are so frustrated that they're letting someone go while they wait for ICE who's a threat to our community. Over 38 years, I've never lost a night's sleep, but I have now. And I take no pleasure in telling you all this, but we better come up with a plan. You need to give me some direction if you want to keep it like it is, or you want to do something different.
Okay, well, we need to have a discussion
Mr. Chair.
about detainers. We'll start with detainers, and then we can get into how we're going to notify ICE, or if we're going to notify ICE, all right?
Mr. Chair, at this point in time, we were going to have a conversation. So we asked for data.
Right.
And we wanted to have a conversation. There's nothing necessarily, I don't have a motion on the table or anything like that.
Right.
just to people start learning more about the data that we solicited and talk about that, because this is an issue, not only an issue of law enforcement, this is an issue also of our local community and how the local community trusts and perceives the issues that of the relationship between ICE and, in this particular case, ICE and the jail system. Police was perceived that way in a particular time, but 287G disappeared for the police a long time ago. And now it's only here in the jail, and it disappeared also recently. And what we try to do is to have a conversation with the information that I received. If we're going to talk, and we can talk about detainers. There is for example, the last fiscal year, there was 287 in effect. And they had, according to the information provided, there were 578 people subject to those detainers, inmates, issued by ICE. Most of those were issued, I guess, by ICE, by sheriff personnel that were acting as ICE agents in that particular circumstance.
Not sure personnel, but go ahead.
The ICE that were deputized for doing those.
We weren't deputized. Our ADC staff were trained in the 287G. Our employees, they were putting detainers on after doing investigations on the subject.
But to put a detainer, you have to have federal authority. Otherwise, you don't have
They had
the
federal
authority.
authority. They went to federal training down in South Carolina for 6
That's
weeks,
correct.
and they were certified.
That's correct. But you have to act as an ICE agent in order to do that. That's what 287G is all about. Now, 74% of those 500 were for misdemeanor cases. And so 74%, 428. When I asked to provide a breakdown of the type of misdemeanors, there was assault on family, simple assault, and the other ones actually were related to driving while intoxicated, driving after forfeiture of license, related to traffic infractions somehow. Serious traffic infractions, but still misdemeanors. When we had these conversations, I put out of the plate felonies, because there's a list of felonies that I understand that might be reasonable to notify ICE of the pending release and to actually detain the person. I think that we're talking about here 2 periods of 2 days each. There's a notification within a notification that somebody's going to be released 48 hours prior.
Only if you had the 287G program, which we don't have anymore, so we don't have that luxury.
So you don't have that now. That you still have the additional 2 days or 48 hours to detain based on a detainer, on a documented.
When they're done with their local offense or released by court or bonded,
yeah,
that's when it's time for us to get a hold of ICE to come pick them up if they have a detainer.
My concern as a jail board member, Mr. Chair, my concern is that we function as part of a criminal justice system. And don't forget that part, justice in the middle of it. It's not a criminal system, it's a criminal justice system. And when you deal with the criminal justice system, what you would like to see is similar outcomes for anybody that violates the law. Anytime that the outcome is different in the criminal justice system, you have to, consider what's going on. And what I mean is, if an American citizen commits a felony or a misdemeanor and is sentenced by the judge, who is the only one authorized to sentence a person? Is sentenced by a judge to whatever sentence it is, or even acquitted, is going back to the community. Regardless of, nobody thinks twice about it. But when you deal with the same violation and a misdemeanor of an immigrant that is undocumented, then we somehow bend backwards to find a way not to release that person to the community, that if it had been an American citizen, we would have not even think about it. And that's where the outcomes are different for the same offense. If that's where I think that the criminal justice system is being criticized everywhere, because the outcomes tend to be different from the rich, from the poor, for the black, from the white. And for the immigrant undocumented, the outcomes is different. And I see that local governments have no business in turning people to other authorities in terms of ICE, knowing how ICE operates, knowing that ICE is flagging down vehicles and doing traffic stops and doing all kinds of things that undermines the trust that would exist between police and community. Because they think, when they do a traffic stop, they think that it's local police. And then they find out that it's not. So my thing is that this board thinks about narrowing this net. I'm not saying that we don't cooperate with federal agencies. I am saying that felons should be released if they have detainers. What I'm saying is that we have to look at the data, see that the immense majority of the cases are traffic related, mostly on drunk drivings, et cetera, et cetera. Even if, for example, if you don't wear a mask in public and you're undocumented alien, you're subject to a misdemeanor because you're violating an executive order of the governor. And that's a misdemeanor. So you have it, it's undocumented, they put a detainer, you turn it over. What I'm saying is, regardless of what other people are doing, we should see what Prince William County, which is a majority minority community, should do. And that's what the conversation should be about. So if this data doesn't give you enough comfort to say that most of the people that we're turning over to ICE are in fact people that have been sentenced by judges for misdemeanor offenses and expect to be treated by the local jail as any other American citizen that would have violated the same law. And that's the point. It goes beyond a particular person, because when you say, if it is undocumented, I don't want him back because he might be a threat to the community. If it had been an American citizen, what would you have done? Nothing. You wouldn't have even brought it to the table. It's okay, the judge sentenced him to a year. He had his year, he completed his sentence, he goes on. But now we are somehow engaged. After that, we are engaged in a process of separations of families permanently. Because when it goes to ICE and ICE reports, what happens is that that family, which might be a mixed family, gets that member completely separated. That doesn't happen to anybody else. So members of this jail board, what I'm trying to do is look at this information, but look at it in a neutral way, in a way that makes sense to you, with some kind of humanity in terms of who is affected by this. 96% of the people that have been issued detainers are Hispanics. And that's why they are so affected by this. I know that there might be changes in the federal law, maybe because there's an election coming and nobody knows what's going to happen. But I know for a fact that some of the candidates that are running in that election for the presidency of the United States are saying we're not going to deport people for misdemeanors publicly. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in terms of elections. But I can tell you that this is an issue that is of such importance to Hispanics that it is worse for you to look at it and see if we can get to a compromise. See if we can get, that's what the conversation is about. See if there is a place where we can meet our minds. If there is a place where law enforcement people and non-law enforcement people might agree to do something that makes the situation better. And that's it. And that's what these conversations are all about. It's not to, I want everything or nothing. It's, let's see if we can find some way that we can get to a point where we can feel comfortable that we are narrowing that net, which is extremely wide right now. That's what I want to say.
Well, Ms. Torres, you mentioned one word. You mentioned justice. And I've been a law enforcement officer for about 51 years, and we enforce the law. We don't have anything to do with when the law is created, we enforce it. And I would never like to be accused of being a selective law enforcement officer. Some of the things that you're talking about is political. And we have been able to run this jail over the last 38 years without politics. I try to keep politics, I'm elected, but I keep politics out of my office because I work for the people. And this is a law enforcement agency. Now, and when the court sends us people, we have to follow the court's order. When those detainers are put on people that are here, we don't know what that detainer involves, whether it's a misdemeanor. That may have been committed a misdemeanor and served the sentence here, but I don't know what the detainer said. The detainer couldn't be involved in some things that happen around the country, internationally. We don't know. All we have is a detainer, and we don't know why. We don't know why. We don't investigate. And we cannot run a criminal records check on that person to see what they've been involved in because we can't use the system for that reason. If we did and the state found out, we would lose access to our system for misusing that system. But we use it for classification. Otherwise, we can't use it to determine what you're talking about. We cannot use it. It is forbidden. It is against the law to do that. So when ICE brings in the detainer and say, I want to put a detainer on this person, here it is. We don't know what that person has been involved in because we don't know. And they don't tell us. So what do? We say, ICE, get out of here, don't do that. I mean, what do we do? Yes.
A couple statements and questions. Mr. Torres, you talked about the misdemeanors. I think you're answering question 3. Yes. Is that correct? Maybe clarification from staff. The way I'm reading your answer is not the same way that he may have read it, which is your charges you have listed states for those that remain at ADC.
That's correct.
That's correct. So we don't know what those other charges would have been. You're only giving us the charges of people that are still here serving their local time.
That's correct.
So we don't know all the charges. The other thing, I agree with you, Mr. Torres, none of us here, we spoke about this the last time, want ICE in the community, knocking on doors, chasing people down on traffic stops, going down the street. But they were pretty clear that night. They said, if you do away with this program, we are going to end up in your communities at night. And I do remember us talking about that was a concern for all of law enforcement at the table that night, because we knew that if the program went away, ICE was going to do exactly what you said, which we've read about in the paper as well. Traffic stops, and Acting Chief Phelps gets those phone calls. I get those phone calls. It's like, it's not us, it's ICE. And that's not where we want them, because not only will they take the person, right, that they may have the detainer on, if they're at a house in the city of Manassas, if there's anybody else there now at that point that have never committed a crime, ICE is taking them in their big net and taking that whole family away. I don't think anybody here wants that. I know I don't. And I've heard other people here say that. So they may take the person who committed the crime and 3 other family members if they're undocumented that had nothing to do with it. None of us want that as well. I think at that night, I agree with you as well. We tried to have a conversation that night with ICE about a compromise and what that threshold would be, which I think is where you're at, is what do we want as a board to discuss the threshold? And I would ask all of us, there's a group that none of us have talked about. And I'm pretty passionate about this, even with the criminal justice reform down in Richmond. None of us have talked about the victims of the crimes. Where is their voice? And it may be a family member, non-associated family member. It could be someone in an accident from a DUI. But where is that victim's voice and their justice from a crime that may have been occurred? Now, I want us to take that into consideration as well. So when we're talking about thresholds, let's consider those crimes, even though some may be misdemeanors, but they're crimes against a person that I would like us to at least take into consideration if we're going to have that conversation.
I got it.
I have a couple questions. Colonel Leas, you said that there was one ADC that doesn't accept ICE detainers. Who is that?
I'd rather not give the name out unless you really want me to.
Is it a Northern Virginia ADC?
No, it's not in the Northern Virginia region. We went all over the state.
Is it an ADC, and you may not know the answer to this, but if you do, is it an ADC that serves a population that has a large minority population?
I don't know about that. I mean, if you want me to tell you who it is, if it's that important, I work with these sheriffs and superintendents, and you know.
What's the downside to you letting us? And the reason
Well,
is because there's at least one jurisdiction that has made the choice to not do this.
it's Richmond City.
Okay. Do you have details of, you said very passionately, and I understand why you would be passionate about this, that the ADC had released inmates into the community that were violent or that were.
Yes.
Can you give me details, not people's names? Tell me about who those inmates were, what the charges were that they were in here for, and what they did when they were released that was damaging your work.
I can, if you give me 2 minutes, I can run to my office and get the list.
I think it's important for us to know.
And I'm not going to give you names.
I don't need names. I want to
Okay.
know the details
Oh,
about.
sure.
about that.
I'll get back.
We can continue the conversation with. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few comments.
Before you go, Deborah, could you let the record reflect that Coach Bailey is here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So Colonel Maletis is not here, and he made some remarks about his oath of office, and I think, Mr. Chairman, you also made the same remarks the last meeting at the end of the meeting. And I just don't want the board members to feel or believe that we are here so you can fail that oath of office to your law enforcement agency. What we're talking about here is about how these decisions are impacting the community who reside in Prince William County and the community who are taxpayer residents of this community and who deserve to live in a place where the way that they look or the culture that they represent should be respected and embraced. Now, from a person who looks Latina, I'm very proud for where I come from. It's very difficult for me to show to you what is my immigration status. You cannot tell by looking at me. However, by looking at my accent, or maybe looking at my last name, what have been my experience? Is that I immediately question about what is my passport and where is my social security card, because I have to prove who I am and whether or not I have legal presence in this country. And this is from a person who's educated and lived in this community for the past 21 years. And that is the reality of many people who live here and who makes them feel uncomfortable. Then we talk about the voice from the victims. And we're talking about, you just made remarks, Mr. Chairman, talking about what are the duties from law enforcement and what are the duties from the judicial system. So I'm here to remind members that the victims are on the hands of the judicial system, and that's why we have systems in place. Now we'll talk about ICE being in the community. There's not something that we can control about. We are not the federal government here. We're the local government, and we know what they're after. We know the times that we are living. And that doesn't have to do about politics or elections. It is just a tone that is coming from the White House throughout the country. And that doesn't have, and that's a program that we cannot control, and we don't have a say in it because that's from the federal government. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that when we look for data and we're looking at those numbers, everything that we are asking is to make data-driven decisions, not associated with race, not associated with immigration status, but data-driven decisions that could take this community and the jail to a different level where everybody feels comfortable to reside in this county, Mr. Chairman. And I hope that as you have individuals who represent those communities, that we can hear that commitment, that we can listen, the willingness to change the culture, because it's not comfortable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, just to address the two issues, one that the chair brought and one that Chief King brought. First, about victims, and she addressed it in part, no doubt about that. Victims' rights are addressed by the judicial system, by the judge, when they find somebody guilty and when they sentence somebody, I send them here. That's the place where the victims get redress. It is not incumbent upon ABC to redress any victim's right because those rights have been already addressed in the judicial system, be it by plea, be it by a guilty verdict. So the victim's rights have been addressed. That's one thing. Releasing the person after they complete their sentence has nothing to do with the victim. Because if that person is an American citizen, you won't even ask the question. It's out there. He completed his sentence. He served his time. But if he's, like we're talking, the person subject to detainers, then it's plus. It's the sentence that the judge gave them, and then you are turning it over for a plus. And it is if the question is if the local government in the law enforcement, in its law enforcement duty from the jail, because this is what we're talking here. If it is incumbent upon the jail to make that decision, that judgment, if a person should or shouldn't be released to the community after they complete their sentence, or after they are acquitted, or after the charges are dismissed, if this is really a local decision, if you feel better, or you feel that you're fulfilling your duties as law enforcement by transferring somebody to ICE so he can get an extra punishment that will save you in your judgment, will save the community from a person that might have been a threat. And my point is, from the legal system, is that is not what the jail should be about, a local jail should be about, or a regional jail should be about. That is for the judge to sentence, and once they complete their sentence, they re-entry, like everybody else. And it is incumbent upon ICE to take care of the border patrol and protect the borders of this country and go after undocumented labor. That's their thing, not our thing. Why should we be part of that? And you feel comfortable being part of that.
Superintendent, do we still receive detainers from the FBI, ATF, and other federal agencies?
Yes.
Not just ICE, other federal agencies,
That's
right?
right. Yes.
Do we still receive writs sometime to take inmates to federal custody risks.
Correct.
We do? Okay, all right.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
sir.
one comment before Superintendent Richard responds back in answer that question. In the first comments that Mr. Torres made, he was very passionate about some things that dealt with ideology, human dignity, and those kinds of things. I was very disappointed to hear anything that he said characterized as political. And we seem to be, setting a stage here, in spite of the fact that he ended with some sort of a request for us coming together in conversation and compromise, that we're drawing lines of either all this way or all that way. I don't know that any member of this board is looking for that kind of discussion or way ahead. And so I would hope that we would open up a little bit and understand that there are a variety of viewpoints, different ideologies, different views on how human dignity and those kinds of things are achieved, as opposed to statements of it's got to be this way or we can't do anything. I just want to just open up a little bit. What we're doing here, Chief, and I got to say this, Chief Kane, it's not about our agreement with or disagreement with any actions under the guise of criminal justice that the Commonwealth delegation is taking up right now. It's about what we do right here. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Ma'am?
I just had an observation, which is that the conversation feels very, very polarized. We've gone from having a 287G program locally to not having one, and concern being expressed about ICE running roughshod, in the streets of the community. And, elsewhere in Virginia, there's only one other jurisdiction with 287G agreement. So it seems that there would be a lot of middle ground that we could perhaps look to model ourselves after, given that having a 287G program made us an outlier in the past.
Concur.
Sure, I still have questions that I wanted to get clarification about based on what Colonel Williams talked about.
Sure.
So did you be able to find that?
Yes. All right. I will go through the list that were released to the community, and then I'll go to the list that ICE was able to pick up on time and get here on time.
And Colonel Williams, how many of them are there? I don't want to take up too
Well, I'll
much.
just go through it real quick. It's not gonna take
all
long.
right.
No. This particular person, reckless driving, failure to stop for police, driving while intoxicated, driving after forfeiture license. The next one, felony, malicious wounding, stabbing, assault. Then we have another, driving while intoxicated, driving while the license revoked. Then we have a fellow with 3 felonies: stab, cut, wound, malicious wounding, stab, cut, wound, malicious wounding, attempted street robbery. And we had a fellow here, failure to appear on charge of DWI while license revoked. Another one, DWI, driving without a license. Then we got felony, bomb, burn, threat, protective order violation, threaten illegal, immoral act over phone, harassment by computer. And then we had assault on a family member.
So of those, are those the charges that the person incurred after they were released into the community?
No, these are what they were here for.
That's why they were
Okay.
here.
Yes,
So
yes.
they're here for those charges.
Yes, ma'am.
And then they conclude their sentence. And
No, they haven't concluded their sentence. These are all pretrial inmates and were able to be released on bond. They were bonded.
Okay, so these are pre-conviction. These are just charges. to
Correct.
Start out with.
That's correct.
And the judge made a determination to release them on bond,
Well, yes,
right?
yes.
And what happened there is that 287G wasn't in place, so that the ADC didn't place a detainer against them.
We didn't, but I.
Right. That's what I'm
That's-
saying.
that's
The
correct.
jail didn't issue the detainer for them.
Correct.
When they came in, did you go through the regular, I guess, what was it, this case, the process of doing an NCIC by the FBI, that then when he got transmitted, that didn't take place because they were released by the court? Is that correct? That ICE didn't even know that they were?
ICE will get the information through live scan fingerprinting, whether or not the person is here undocumented. So,
Okay, and so they come in, ICE, it finds out that they're here,
Correct.
that they're undocumented in some way, and they want to issue a detainer, and then the judge releases.
well, they go through the process. Sometimes, as I read these things, they end up coming in with no bond with the magistrate, and then they end up going to court 3 or 4 times, and the bond just gets lowered here and there until the person can afford to get bonded out.
But that's a judge's decision, our
To lower
Prince
it.
William County
Correct.
judge's decision to release.
That's correct.
Okay. So in that case, it's not that the jail is doing something.
One other thing too,
Okay.
it could be someone who comes in right now or a couple hours ago, gets a detainer, gets bonded out at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we've seen that pattern happen where they're getting bonded out at nighttime, late at night or on the weekends, figuring ICE won't be able to get here in time. That's correct.
But we don't know, as you sit here right now, that the person's charged with malicious wounding. There were 2 of those, and there was one, the threats to bomb or burn. You don't know if those people have been found guilty of anything.
No, they're all pretrial.
They're all pretrial.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
they may be innocent of those charges. They may never be
Well.
found guilty of those charges. Or they may be found guilty of misdemeanor charges.
They're gonna be not guilty, or they're gonna be not guilty or guilty, I guess. if that's what you're saying.
Or it's gonna get bled down to something less than that.
It could be.
Something entirely different. And so I'm just, the reason why I'm going over this in such detail, sir, is because the characterization you made of it is that we're releasing people who are dangerous back into the community. And that's a concern every person in this room is gonna have. But this doesn't prove that. That's not what this should tell you. If people come back out into the community after being released because we don't contact ICE, and they then commit violent felonies again, I don't even know, and probably we won't have the data for it yet, because ICE has been gone for not a long enough period of time. I don't want to minimize law enforcement's concern in this room. None of us do. But we can't make decisions on data that is not what I respectfully suggest is not saying what you are saying it might be saying.
Well, I'm
You may
looking,
decide 6 months from now.
I'm looking
that
at
that's happening.
I'm looking at the criminal charge
Right,
that's here,
right.
and it just came in and so forth.
Right.
And ICE is willing to get their team together and go look for them.
Okay, and now let's move on to that. I just wanted to point out that I don't believe at this juncture that the data says what you think it's, what you're suggesting is saying, but we might decide 6 months or a year from now that it does.
Okay.
We just don't have that now. So moving on to the next point you're making is this, ICE has made their presence known in the community. So as the chief public defender, I know that because I've been getting those phone calls from people because their relative has been stopped and everybody in the car has been taken into custody. 2 things about that. One, as these folks just mentioned a couple minutes ago, us cooperating with ICE or not is not going to stop ICE from continuing to go into our community and do that. I mean, if in fact law enforcement is telling me that we're being extended, I'm going to be hyperbolic, but we're being extorted by ICE, and that if we don't cooperate with you, we're going to step up in order to punish you in some way for not cooperating with us, well, that's terrifying, frankly. What they're doing, at least one of those that I have talked with, was an undocumented individual with a failure to appear on a driving on suspended charge. That is not a risk to our community. Now, I don't know much about the others because they've been taken into custody, and as we all know, you can't get access to those folks. So I contacted CARE, which does have access to the facilities for ICE in Virginia. And I've got those attorneys trying to reach those folks. But what I'm not hearing yet is that the release of these folks, if we focus on misdemeanors, is a danger to our community. I'm not hearing it yet.
I wasn't
You know,
referring.
I think we're getting away from what is on the agenda, of what we're supposed to be talking about tonight, okay? All those things that's been said is good. Tonight, we're here to talk about detainers, all right? Whether or not this board is going to allow ICE to put detainers on people in this facility. That's what's on the table. That's what we talked about in last meeting. And what I would like to do is two things. One, let the board decide whether ICE is going to put detainers on folks in this facility. And we can break it down even further is how much time, if we do that, how much time do you want to direct superintendent staff to hold people until ICE gets here, or just what? If we can work on those two things, that would take care of what's on the agenda tonight. But all those things that's been said, it's all good. And we need to come to an agreement, all right? So what I would like to do now is to put the forth, somebody put the forth a motion about detainers, whether or not the Prince William-Manassas Adult Detention Center is going to allow ICE to put detainers on inmates at this facility. Because that's what we talked about last
Can
time.
you clarify, when you say allow them to put detainers, they're gonna issue detainers whether we want them to or not. What you're talking about is whether this facility is then going to hold them on the basis of that detainer. Is that what you're asking? Is that
Well,
what you're
yes,
suggesting?
they can place a detainer.
Right.
And once that person gets released, they just get released and we call ICE and say they're gone or whatever. Right.
Mr. Chair, my proposal then and my proposal today, which is what we've been trying to do, is just to, as a policy from this board, tell the ADC that ADC will notify ICE of the impending release of inmates subject to detainers under the following conditions. A, when inmates have been charged or convicted of a felony violation, or B, when ICE had previously notified ADC that they had issued a detainer on an inmate for a federal felony charge, putting the burden on them to tell you, we want this guy because of a felony federal charge. So that's as simple as that. What I'm trying to get is out of the misdemeanor business. And I think that that is kind of half the road, because no felon will go, no fellow that ICE put a detainer on, all those will be honored. The ones that will not be honored, and they don't have to be honored based on.
See, in other words, you want us to ask ICE what it's for, and based on what if it's not for a felony, we tell them what?
If it's not for a felony, you don't have to honor it.
Mr.
It may be a civil sin. It may be a civil sin of deportation.
Ms. Pendak.
Yes, sir. I was just trying to, Mr. Torres moved pretty quickly. If he could go back again and restate what he said.
Okay.
Because I know that there are lots of nuances on this, just as Ms. Lennox was asking about.
Basically, the proposal is that the ADC will notify ICE, as it has been doing, notify us of the impending release of inmates subject to detainers only under the following circumstances.
Okay. Can you
And
slow
there's
just
an
a little bit, 'cause
A and there's a B.
I'm just trying to write, so can you go real slow? I'm sorry. Because somebody's going to ask me later what your motion was.
Okay. The ADC will notify
I got that part. What are the two factors?
ICE of the impending release of inmates subject to detainers
Got it.
only under the following circumstances. A, when inmates have been charged with or convicted of felony violations of local law, of state law. Or B, and now I'm putting it on ICE, B, when ICE have previously notified you, not you asking them, they, because they're one interested, they tell you that their detainer is for when it had previously notified ADC that it had issued a detainer on an inmate for a felony charge. They have to tell you. Why would you have to ask them? If they are interested in somebody that they place a detainer on a felony, they should be at least tell the ADC, hey, so and so that I put a detainer, that's on a felony charge, federal felony charge. And then you comply. So why would we take it upon ourselves to ask them what this detainer is for? We don't have to do that. Let them tell us.
Mr. Chairman, is that a motion?
You know, he added a lot to it.
That's why, Mr. Chairman, I think, and Mr. Torres, if you'd be patient, that's with my not being able to write fast enough. I think.
I have it written right.
Yes, sir, that'd be good. I think if you could just say it one more time and maybe we can.
Mr. Chair, may I approach her?
Yeah, please.
So because I know this is an emotional issue and argument gets in the middle of what the motion is. And I think what everybody wants to be sure is what the motion is. So if you'll just bear with me.
Sure.
As I understand, and I'm reading from Mr. Torres's statement, his motion is the ADC will notify ICE of the impending release of inmates subject to detainers only under the following circumstances. A, when inmates have been charged with or convicted of felony violations. Or B, when ICE had previously notified the ADC that it had issued a detainer on an undocumented inmate for a federal felony charge. Everybody got that?
Ms.
Bandick,
that's his motion. That's his motion, correct?
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
Can I get a second to the motion?
I second.
All right, now we have a discussion.
So I have a quick question on part A, is if I understood this correctly, charges of a felony charge or conviction. Is that my understanding? Am I hearing that correctly?
If you're charged with or convicted of. So if you enter the facility, you're with the charge of a felony.
And there's a detainer out, then we
And
will
if a
notify
detainer
us.
out, you will hold that person
Okay.
for that charge.
As I
It's a compromise. I don't get it at all. You understand? I'm
Understood.
trying to get to a place of comfort among
Understood. I'm
most of the
kind of
people.
looking at the nuance here because you could bring somebody in to be charged with a felony, but convicted of a misdemeanor. So
Well,
I'm trying to look at
that's what I'm
the
giving you
loophole,
the
basically.
charge.
Yeah, I'm looking at the
I think
loophole
that
that's going to
goes to
happen.
the issue of what both the superintendent and Ms. Lennox were in discussion about with the pretrial,
Mhm.
where they're coming in at intake, correct?
That's correct.
And then the post where they're actually serving time.
Mhm.
I'm sorry to bother you. Question, Chair.
Please go ahead, discussion.
This is a question to ADC staff. Mandy, you're probably the expert. Is that doable with your staff?
Yeah. And here's why. So first of all, we got it, for instance, we received a detainer the other day from California, an ICE detainer from California, to try to track down somebody to determine whether or not, and they're not going to call us. They're lodging a detainer from California. They don't know our policy. So they're not going to reach out and they're not going to say it's for a federal warrant or a federal charge or a federal felony charge, as the motion states. Not to mention, any documents that we get, our staff are not trained in reading those documents to determine what it is. So I think our biggest problem with this particular policy is, one, having the ability to contact somebody to discern or them to know that our policy is that they have to contact us. There's no way to communicate that to immigration. There's just no way. The first part of it, the felony, that gets tricky, right? So you can have somebody that comes in for a felony charge, which lends itself to what Ms. Lennox was saying, does that, they're not even convicted yet, right? And then we would just notify ICE that they're getting ready to be released. The problem again with that is if they have a bond, right? If the judge sets a bond from arraignment and they bond them at midnight, which has become the pattern, ICE won't be able to pick them up. They're not coming at midnight to pick up somebody. So there needs to be further guidance, in my opinion, as to what else we can do if this is, so there's a lot of loopholes in this, Chief King, in terms of what our staff are able to do. Lack of training, lack of ability to read the immigration warrants or detainers, their inability to even know, or how do we communicate to ICE that they're supposed to contact us to let us know what the charge is, if it's a charge. So this would be difficult for staff, and quite frankly, I see mistakes being made.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Follow-up question?
Yes.
We have a second, so we're eventually gonna have to get to a vote.
Right.
Is it, I mean, I'm interested in hearing more on this. This, as you said, is, you and I started off at the beginning. Where's the threshold at, right?
We're looking for a
Where's the
threshold.
threshold? That's right. So you presented one. Is it fair, improper, and the best thing to do to table this until they being the people who can act on it, get back with us of if it's doable with more information or not? I don't know.
And I want to add to what you were saying, because a lot of detainers, correct me if I'm wrong now, detainers, when we get them in, we don't know if it's a felony or misdemeanor to do it. We don't know that, right? How can we find that out?
They would have to call ICE, but the problem is it goes back to training. I've had the training. If I talk to an ICE agent, I can speak their language. The average intake officer or records clerk cannot. So to ask them to interpret what's told of them, to what's the information that's given to them, to determine whether they meet, especially the second standard, and especially with undocumented, because we won't know whether an individual, if a detainer is documented or undocumented.
Or whether it pertains to that. Right. Now, isn't that the same thing that we were doing under the 287G program?
Yeah, we would, it was part of our investigation before we would know these things. But
So we would basically be doing the same thing that we were doing under 287G. Right.
I think
So,
the
yeah, I
first
thought
part of this coming in with, if the person is charged or convicted of a felony, it's pretty straightforward, except we don't know if it's what the charge they came in on. It's very clear what the detainer may be issued because they have a felony in Fairfax or whatever. So we really don't know, but the charge a person comes in with, we absolutely know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if they come in.
The other part, they're not telling us.
Just, I'm gonna have to excuse myself for 10 minutes. I have to step out, and the reason is because we got notification about the meeting 2 days ago, and I already have a prior commitment. So I have to step out to take care of that, and I'll be back in 10 minutes. Is it possible? I don't know how the room wants to proceed. Well, number one, I would like to be excused for 10 minutes. And second is that if there is any voting going on, can it be waited until I be back, or can I be proxy to someone if something happens in the 10 minutes?
I tell you what we would do. Why don't we take a 10-minute break?
Yes,
All
because
right,
you
we'll
told
take
me
a
not
10-minute
to.
break. We'll be more than happy to do
Thank
that.
you. Appreciate that. Sorry about.
Yes.
still in session, right?
Yes, yes.
She said, yeah,
Sorry, thank you, everyone. I apologize.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. And I think we've had a good discussion. I think we're ready to vote.
Sheriff, I think I need to make a motion based on our conversations with ADC staff about what is doable. Because we don't want to assign something that the ADC staff can't do. I would make a motion to strip out section B.
If you want to amend my motion as a friendly
Yes, I think that
amendment,
would be the
Yeah.
appropriate parliamentary that you would second if you would amend it. If you're willing to amend it, Mr. Torres, then we won't need to.
So I second the motion if you make that motion.
yeah, I wouldn't to accept that amendment offer to strip B and still only with A.
Is that an accurate statement?
yes.
We can't identify.
So we want to take out B. And
Yes, sir, that's what I
Yeah.
understood.
Yes, okay.
Can you read the motion now?
Yes, can we read the motion?
Yes, sir, I can. What I have now is Mr. Torres's motion with Ms. Lennox's second. The ADC will notify ICE of the impending release of inmates subject to detainers only under the following circumstances: when inmates have been charged with or convicted of felony violations. Yeah. I believe that's it when I strip it up. Charged with or convicted of felony violations.
Can I get a second on that motion?
Thanks.
You have Ms. Lennox, I believe, at second.
Ms. Lennox second that motion, all right. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Debbie, call the roll, please.
Austin,
Aye.
Bailey,
Aye.
Clymer,
Aye.
Guzman,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Costelecki.
Aye.
Lennox.
Aye.
Phelps,
Aye.
Smith is absent, Torres,
Aye.
unanimous, sir.
Okay, good. The other issue we need to clear up is how much time are we going to give ICE to get here? And we talked about that at the last meeting. That was also an issue.
Right, what are we doing now? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Superintendent, what are we doing now?
What we're doing now is if someone's on the release list, ICE will know about it. Otherwise, people who go to court and come back, if they get released, we'll call ICE. Or if someone gets bonded out, say right now, it's a very quick process. If they're here, they go down and see the magistrate, and then they're all ready to roll in about 20, 25 minutes, and ICE is missing those. So if we could coordinate a release, say a couple hours, something like that, or whatever y'all come up with.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If you would, Superintendent, please review, when you did the survey of those 14 to 15, then you also include the time. Could you review that for us again, right before we consider it?
Say that again.
You told us about there are different time limits that folks have throughout the Commonwealth.
Okay, sure.
If you could review that for us
Thank
again.
you. Okay, one jail does 1 hour, 1, 2, 3, 4 jails do 2 hours. 2 jails do 4 hours. And that's it.
I have a question as well.
Thank you.
Does holding an inmate past the time of release for the purpose of ICE picking them up subject us to a lawsuit like the previous lawsuit that the jail was subjected to? I think that was the subject of the lawsuit, but maybe Ms. Van Dyke can correct me if that's not correct.
The, Mr. Chairman, if you'd let me address that.
Please.
The previous lawsuit was voluntarily dismissed. Excuse me, at first there was the motion for a temporary TRO was denied, and then the lawsuit was voluntarily dismissed, as I recollect. So it was not dispositive on the issue of the amount of time that an inmate could be held past the time of bond being made. So we don't have that information from a court precedent in this jurisdiction.
And my actual, what I was really getting at was, does it subject us to the possibility of another lawsuit? The lawsuit itself, though, was about that issue, was it not?
I would say, Ms. Lennox, that there is no doubt in my mind that somebody may bring another lawsuit if people are held after the time that the bond is made. Because I have been told that from time to time by defense counsel. Whether or not that lawsuit will be successful is at this point in time. That's why I want to make it clear that there has been no determination on that. There was a denial of, as I recall, a motion for a temporary restraining order on the jail's policy.
I have a question, and it's the legality. So somebody is provided a bond subject to release. However, under current circumstances, if they've been given they're under lost my train of thought, a detainer, then the detainer takes the precedence at that point, correct? Otherwise, we would hold on to that person normally because there's a federal detainer in place. So the legalities of that, I see that detainer as being the coverage at that point. Whether or not they time frame, I think, is a little different. But am I understanding that correctly?
That's what the ADC would argue if that suit was brought, is that the detainer allowed the person to be held.
Right. Okay.
The question is, without the 287G program, does that affect the ability to rely on that detainer?
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Quick question for Ms. Panday. Wasn't there an attorney general ruling or about holding, unless you can't hold unless you have a 287G, or I'm not sure if I'm
You are correct, Mr. Austin. In fact, you led right into what I was responding to Chief Phelps, is that the issue of the legal strength of the detainer for holding someone after bond is made by the Attorney General in 2019, I believe. He indicated that that was not sufficient, essentially, unless there was a 287G program. But again, that was an Attorney General's opinion. If a court were to take up the matter, that would take precedent over the Attorney General's opinion.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So those timeframes that you gave us are the timeframes that after notification, those particular facilities will give ICE to respond?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, they were coinciding the release when ICE got here?
Correct. So basically, when we get release documents, excluding bond, when we get release documents, we've got all day to get them out, right? They're to be released today.
Got it.
So what the jails that I spoke to were doing is calling ICE saying, hey, we just got paperwork back from the court. And then there's a process that they're going to be released. You got a couple of hours before you get here. So it was their process in getting the release paperwork done, the I's checked, the T's crossed, make sure everything is in place. And if I was there within that 1 to 4 hour window, they would do it. But once they're ready to be released, they're released.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you asked a almost rhetorical question earlier that intrigued me. What if you have an FBI detainer? What do you do?
We would hold them. We would hold them.
So we treat some federal law enforcement agency detainers differently than we do from ICE?
Is that a question? Is that a question?
That's what we're doing.
That's right.
Okay.
And are the FBI or the ATF detainers based on federal criminal law? And the ICE detainers are based, you don't actually know, but they quite often, if they're just about being undocumented, are based on civil federal law.
If it's the second time, it's a felony.
Got it, but I got it. I mean, it can be,
It can be a
criminal law.
felon. It can be a felon,
criminal
right,
law.
right. It can be federal law,
But
yes,
it's,
it can be.
but it's also
Right.
very, very often.
Thank you.
Based on
Right.
criminal law.
So on a bond, are they holding up the process of getting the release to magistrate until they get there?
So every jail operates differently. Some jails are much more efficient like ours than others. So it depends on the time frame. What our bondsmen have been doing as of late has been posting bond at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night to do that. Other areas are seeing that their release process in totality is about that 1 to 2 hour range, even for a bond, depending on where the inmate is located within the facility, depending on how quickly it takes them to get dressed, inventory their property. There's a lot of process for an inmate to be released. So the 2 hour window seems to be the most that would take for any jail to reasonably get somebody prepared, make sure the documents are in order, notify ICE, and do those things, regardless of whether it's a bond or a release from the courts.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, so the ICE would be in effect denying bond to that particular inmate.
I'm sorry?
ICE, through the detainer, by picking up, will be denying the bond that a local Prince William judge, for example, put into put a bond on the particular inmate.
Right. If it's a felony, it's a felony, just like we voted on.
Yeah.
Right.
We're talking about a felony case.
Right.
If the judge gives that person a bond by saying ICE, you have an hour or two to pick it up, they will be nullifying the decision of the judge in Prince William that actually set that bond. No.
So they would see a federal judge. They would go and see a federal judge, and then that judge would make the decision as to whether or not they would get a bond.
But that would be a bond on the federal charge, not a bond on the local charge.
No, because they're bonding out on the local charge. We're turning them over at your policy recommendation on that felony that they're being released on to make their bond. They'd be taken into ICE custody, presented before a federal judge, and then the federal judge would make a determination as to bond or in custody or what have you.
Got it.
Make a motion, the 2 hour window seems appropriate without going excessive and is the normal. So I make a motion of 2 hours.
2 hours. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second.
Question?
Are you inviting comments or questions?
Questions or comments?
So I would just say that I think it's dubious whether it's lawful. I think that holding until the time of release is appropriate. I personally think that there's a Fourth Amendment detention issue involved in this. And I think we're inviting another lawsuit to say that to hold beyond the time that the jail holds for purposes of processing. That's my 2 cents about it. As a lawyer, I think it's, like I said, it's constitutionally dubious, and I would not advocate for it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So again, pulling the string though, didn't you call 14 or 15? What was the number of jails you called?
14.
14, but you gave me data on 7. Does that mean the 7 that you didn't give me hours on are doing something similar to what we're doing here?
No, we had 4 that are doing what we do.
Okay, that's what I missed. 4 that are doing, okay, all right, good.
Sorry, can I clarify? I thought, Superintendent, you said 7 coordinated the release with ICE. Is that, did I misunderstand?
Well, they didn't coordinate that yet.
Yeah, they do. They call ICE and say, look, it's going to be about 2 hours. You better be here. This is how long our process is going to take.
So, but it's not a defined period of time.
No, it is.
Okay.
I mean, every jail that I talked to, Steve, was, nope, we give them 2 hours to get here. So basically what they do is kind of going back to what Tracy had said is they get the paperwork for release, they call ICE and they said, you got about 2 hours to get here. So what they've done is figured out how long it typically takes to process an inmate for release. It's not as if they're saying we're going to hold them. They're not releasing them from custody and then holding them in custody. They're processing them and giving ICE about a 2 hour window. So it is a coordinated release. Absolutely, it's coordinated because they're calling them and saying it's going to be about 2 hours. So they figured out the average that it takes to process somebody for release.
That's only on felonies.
No, they do it on everybody. Everybody that I talk to, they do it on everybody.
The 2-hour window that we're voting is because we just
your motion.
voted down the
For the felon.
misdemeanor, so, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can
I'm
I ask
fine
the
with that.
superintendent another question about
Yes, sir.
about the window? Is that, it's always, it's, the 2-hour window is coordinated is what you were saying, so I'm not sure. I kind of lost my train
Well,
of
I
thought.
think where the issue comes in, if someone gets bonded right now,
Right. Well,
if someone comes in right
Was this by,
now.
is this by policy? That's really
Yeah.
what I want. Is this by policy of the jail board or the sheriff that they're doing that? Or is it just how long it's normally taken to release the inmate? You know,
Well,
the processing time.
Especially the ones come from court that are released because the records have got to check everything.
It takes
and so
that
forth
long.
and So on, yeah.
Right, I understand. Okay.
But I want to make, just so we're clear, right now, nobody is being held once the bond.
That's correct.
No, they're being released.
No.
Okay.
That's correct.
Actually, it's not just bonds. It's
I'm sorry, I didn't
everybody.
mean to everybody.
Yeah, it's everybody.
So,
And would the motion change that?
No, it's still,
No, would it change the situation that we
Change
just
the
described?
situation we're in right now. The current policy that the jail follows, would the motion change that?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, I just wanted to make sure. I don't want to be obtuse. I just wanted to make sure I was very clear what we were talking about here.
but there are some people that we'll probably miss and they will get out, correct?
That is correct.
They will.
Mr. Chair, was that, you mean even if we voted for 2 hours?
Yeah,
release?
there are
Okay,
some
all right.
people still
Yeah.
slip through and get out. It's
I
gonna
just won't
happen.
get here in 2 hours.
They won't be
so
able to get in 2
released.
hours, right. And it may be a person that's in receiving, which will take they can go a little bit quicker and they'll be out. Right.
That's true.
But we're compromising, correct?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Are we ready to vote?
Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up question, and I appreciate the compromising part, but now let's talk about accountability. Would we have systems in place to monitor those 2 hours? Like, is there gonna be someone in charge to monitor that those 2 hours actually happen and we're not going beyond or shorten the time?
The two don't become 4.
Yes.
In other words, let me just understand your question.
So,
Are we
let's say
gonna
someone-
document
Yes,
the release process?
exactly.
I don't
So,
see why not. We can do that.
okay,
Okay, sure.
thank
Because
you. I appreciate it.
that's pretty much part of our business when a person comes and documents. So yes.
Okay.
Any other questions, discussion? All right, David, call the roll, please.
Austin,
Aye.
Bailey,
Nay.
Clymer,
Aye.
Guzman,
I think I have to, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm still, and I haven't heard this from staff about the legal repercussions that Mrs. Lennox brought up. So I just don't, I'm afraid that if we go against the law, that there'll be repercussions. So that is the part that I'm extremely thankful for the compromising.
You can abstain.
I think I have to abstain for now.
Okay, all right.
okay. Hill.
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Kosteleki,
Aye.
Lennox,
Nay.
Phelps.
Aye.
Smith is absent. Torres,
Abstain.
unanimous, sir. Yes.
Thank
no, I
you.
don't
Thank
think
you.
so.
Not unanimous. Not unanimous.
1, 2, 3, 4.
No from Bailey and Lennox.
Right, 2 abstentions.
Yes, so it passes.
I think you
Yes,
could just say that
it does
passes, not that it was.
Pass it, pass it,
Yeah,
pass it.
just let that flow back.
And I hope the board agrees with me.
That's what I was gonna say.
Superintendent and staff, at our next meeting, could you report to us how this is going for the next 2 months?
Sure.
Okay, all
Will
right.
do.
Where the glitches are, where the problems are, what you have, and so we can revisit this if we have to, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank the board for arriving at a reasonable compromise. And I know that it may have been difficult for some, but I think that the willingness of coming to a position where we could meet our minds, I do appreciate what you have done today on behalf of the Hispanic community. I think that you have done a step forward.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I didn't find the need to telegraph my vote because you tell me I talk too much anyway. That's what you told me on vote. So that's why I said that. That's not on a serious note.
I thought things that we said were between us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's important to publicize the procedures to the public as soon as possible. Not necessarily how we voted, but what the process going forward will be.
Okay.
There's still intense interest.
Okay. One of the things that we can do is post it on our website, right?
Whatever means you do.
Right. The number of what we did to get information out. Okay, all right. We will. Next on the agenda is jail board members' comments, and I'm gonna start here and we'll go around the members.
I think I have participated enough, Mr. Chairman, so I want to thank you for allowing me and thank the members for allowing me to excuse myself for 15 minutes. I put it on my calendar from now through the end of next year, so that will not happen again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless you're in Richmond.
Well, I come once a week when I'm in Richmond to see my children, so I made that day a Wednesday, so I can make it to the
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I have no further comments. I think that I have talked a lot tonight.
I agree. Thank you. Tony? Thank you. Skylar?
No.
Thank you. Thank you. See?
Great conversation, passionate conversation, great presentation as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Chief?
Just look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you.
It was great conversation and thank you all for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I have no comments. And Chief, I'm gonna give you this motion to read for us. How about that? All right. Let's go welcome to one of the staff members.
All right. Motion reference to approve the purchase of duty weapon. Whereas First Sergeant Carla Goodman will retire on October 1st, 2020 in good standing from the Prince William-Manassas Regional Adult Detention Center after 25 years of exemplary service. And whereas in honor of her dedicated years of service, and whereas in accordance with Virginia Code 59.1-148.3, purchase of handguns of certain officers allows First Sergeant Goodman to purchase her duty weapon. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Prince William-Manassas Regional Jail Board does hereby approve First Sergeant Goodman to purchase her duty weapon.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. You will need to call a roll on that one, Devin. Thank you so much. Now I need a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to?
Please,
give
please.
that
Yes,
motion
you have
so
the right
somebody can
language
make
for
it?
it. Yes, ma'am.
It's to authorize closed meeting, whereas the Prince William-Manassas Regional Jail Board desires to discuss in closed meeting the following matter. One, personnel matter involving performance of specific employees, that is the superintendent's review. And whereas pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1, such discussion may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Prince William-Manassas Regional Jail Board does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matter in closed meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I need somebody to make the
Make a
motion.
Need a motion. Oh, sorry, that's right.
Yes.
So moved.
So move. Second. Any question?
I'm easy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll be back.
Got it, okay.
Each report card.
Talked about those matters in closed meeting for which you went into closed meeting.
I make a motion
Second.
Second?
Phelps was second.
Got a second?
Yes.
All right.
Mr.
Any
President.
question? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, thank you.
Opposed, just in case you can ask if anybody's opposed.
But anybody opposed? Anybody opposed?
Thank you.
That's fine. Do we have to certify?
You just did, you're
We
good
just
now.
did, okay.
Yes,
Make
so
sure-
you
make
can
sure-
go on
make
to
sure.
whatever else is on the agenda.
Because I thought we had to make a motion to come out of and then certify.
No, so you don't have to make a motion to come out.
All
Some,
right, good.
some
But-
entities do.
Okay, but we can make a
but
motion to adjourn.
Everybody's.
Second.
Who's making the motion to adjourn? All right, who's second?
Steve did.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Thank you so much. Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Bailey needs a
Enjoy your
note
evening.
to take home that